Hello, this is Dr. B. I appreciate you stopping by. Stand by. Let's get to it. So we begin part 3 of our series on toxic people. How do we deal with them? First of all, we need to be prepared for pushback when we deal with folks who are truly toxic. They don't like being challenged. They don't like rules. They don't like boundaries. And these are the very things that we must employ if we're going to deal with them. Sometimes those boundaries involve simply walking away from a relationship. Sometimes that's not practical because we're dealing with family, and it's more a matter of setting strict limits on how often they see us, their access to us, how much time they can spend with us, topics we allow them to speak to us about, even allowing them to be critical, walking away when they're pointing the finger, blaming, putting down, demoralizing, and then also minimizing their own responsibility. Safety is an important factor when dealing with toxic people. And most of the time, we can simply face them, set boundaries, say what we need to say. And that often means expressing what we will tolerate, what we won't tolerate. If it's someone we're very close to, what we expect with regard to their changes, and what we will do as consequences if change is not made. However, there are times, especially dealing with a spouse who tends to be abusive, where we need to be meeting in a public place to discuss things, to set limits, to enforce the boundaries. Sometimes that means meeting in front of the police station to have a talk. Sometimes that means if there has been recent threats or violence where police are actually involved when a spouse is confronted. Hopefully that's not something you'll have to face. But again, safety is the top priority. There's no way to get your point across. There simply is no way they're going to listen if safety isn't in place. So be safe. Also, for your own protection, the CYA that we always talk about, keep a paper trail. If we're talking about loved ones, write things down, send them a copy. Express what you agreed upon if there was an agreement, or express what your expectations are for their improved behavior. If it's a coworker, send emails, document. If you're having discussions, follow it up with an email. But make sure that there's some way to show that you have in good faith tried to work with them, tried to help them to change. Otherwise, what you can run into is what is often employed by a toxic person, and that is lies. Just making statements like, oh, well, that never came up, or she never said that, or that never happened. So document, keep the paper trail. Also, when you set these boundaries, when you limit access to yourself, again, time that they can spend with you, topics they're allowed to address, how they treat you, how they speak to you, and so forth. When you point these out to them and press the matter, do it as gently as you can, but as honestly as you can. And as you do that, think of a very matter-of-fact approach, like someone going into their supervisor at the office and basically saying, if you're late again, you're going to be terminated. And as we talked about in previous videos, be ready for them to deny, the damage they've done, the hurt they have caused, or that they may even say, oh, I was just joking. Also minimizing what's happened, like, oh, it wasn't that important, or it wasn't that bad, or you're too sensitive. So be ready for them to employ those maneuvers when you set boundaries, when you confront them. And many of you out there are very good-natured folks, and you're givers. Some of you are caretakers, but you're very empathetic, and you're concerned about other people, their feelings, not causing them harm or hurt. You have to be ready to be able to have toxic people feel uncomfortable. They need to. Otherwise, there will be no motivation for them to change. Don't let yourself be taken advantage of because of your good nature and because you care about people. That is something that toxic people are very, very good at taking advantage of. So, in summary, recognize that toxic people leave you feeling worse than when before you spoke with them. They're often self-centered, manipulative, and the way you deal with them is by setting boundaries, being assertive, and then backing up those boundaries 100%. You can be a good person and still be assertive. You can be a good person and still confront what's wrong. And remember the rule of thumb we talked about in our first video. Would it be okay for you to treat them the way they're treating you? And if the answer to that is no, then don't tolerate what they're doing. So with that, God bless and be healthy.